Welcome, everyone. I was just telling here before we started the event that I absolutely love our mornings together. It's such a nice way to start the day. So I'm really, really happy for being here, and it feels great that we are kind of moving forward also in our board oversight of sustainability for value creation program. So we have some participants that are doing the program. So we have a little cohort, and then we also have some participants. Some of you are a bit kind of externals just coming for this event. So welcome, and moving forward, we have a really amazing group of guests today here with us. So we will hear from Stanislav Shekshnia from INSEAD, also Ned, and from Henrik Forzelius. He's a PhD candidate here at KTH. Also a board director, and also an Årneby. And Anna has also been previously a participant in this program. So it's very nice that we are building a community around the program. Unfortunately, Bente is not going to join us today. She had some last minute engagements. But she sends her best regards to everyone. And then, of course, you have our chair from Boards Impact Forum, the one and only Liselotte Engstam, also a board director, and me myself as the operations director here for Boards Impact Forum. Um, Moving forward, I just want to show you a little bit of what's going to happen here today. So we start with some food for thought insights from research. So we start with the presentation from Henrik Forzelius, and then we have a presentation from Professor Stanislav Shekshnia. We then have some perspectives a bit more focused on the board with Anna Årneby, and once we have kind of been inspired by these presentations, we have a poll and we go into breakout rooms. So we have discussion time so that we can really go in depth into these insights. Allowing reflection is a key element here. So then after the breakout rooms, we come back and then we share and we have some comments from the panel. And that's pretty much the plan for today. Moving forward, we would like you to be muted for this first part. Also, please be aware, it would be super nice if you could make sure that you have your name. So because sometimes people have, iPhone 6 or something. So please make sure that you have your name um, in the chat. And we are going to record the webinar, of course, not the breakout rooms, just so you are aware. To get started, it would be super nice if we could go to the chat and write where we are calling from. Also, a bit, who we are, a bit where we are calling from. So we have an overview of who is here with us today also. Any kind of questions, please put them in the chat and I will do my best to bring them up during the panel. The next slide, please. And I just want to say very few words very shortly about who we are and why we are doing this. So we are Boards Impact Forum. We are part of the Climate Governance Initiative in collaboration with the World Economic Forum. So this Climate Governance Initiative has chapters all around the world, at the moment 71 countries, and we are the chapter for the Nordics. So we include um, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Iceland, Denmark, and we also work in collaboration with the main board networks in the Nordics. So we really want to have this approach of creating an ecosystem together um, for board directors. If we can move to the next slide, please. And I can just say very shortly a few words about, so just so that you get a bit placed where we are here today. So the program that we have created follows the 8 principles from the World Economic Forum on how to set up effective climate governance on corporate boards. We kind of have grouped these 8 principles that you can find there to the right in 4 big group areas. And today's webinar is really focused there on the big area related to risk and strategy impact, connected to the materiality assessment, strategic integration. So that's the focus for today. So for those of you who are not taking the program, that are not familiar with the principles, I would really recommend you to check out the principles. They're very, very useful. And without further ado, I would like to pass to the word to Liselotte Engstam so that she can give you some insights on the research we have been conducting. Please, Liselotte.
Thank you so much, and warm welcome, everybody. The insight that we will be sharing now in the first part is based on a research that is ongoing. And we call it board practices for long term. We're trying to identify what the difference is, how boards are acting on what we call fast disruptions or slow disruptions. So disruptions that happen quickly or disruptions that keeps slowly entering our area. So that is what we've looked into. We've done surveys and research and interviews. And Henrik will let us more about that. Stanislav is also involved in this, and also is also Professor Mats Magnusson. So to start with, and then we align this to the dilemmas that we have identified around materiality. And materiality basically means that you're trying to identify the most important risks or opportunities that will impact your company. So the topics that will impact your company. And if you're into the reporting part, you probably heard about the double materiality as well. And if we just start to talk about the basic part of this, the materiality at all, the topic, the dilemmas we have around this is how do we define and assess the material topics across time frames? So how do we get them into the same perspective and can prioritize between short and long term? How do we integrate then when we have done this specifically for sustainability? How do we integrate that back to the overall risk and opportunity that the company is working with? What is becoming more and more current for us, and also that is also one of the reasons we're talking about this, is that we need to be better at, we have a dilemma on actually looking at material topics that come up quickly. How do we get them integrated? To balance the business need then, long and short term, but also the business needs between them and the sustainability. And then effectively actually using scenarios. So we have all been talking about scenarios for a long time. We have talked about it and we haven't really done it. So now we are actually sitting here with 2 types of scenarios. One of them is the scenario for the world or for our business and industry or for the climate. And then we have the inner scenario, which is what are the scenarios our business could go in. And then we have the dilemmas around the actual strategic integration. Maybe I should have just said quickly, I go back. You can see that about half of us are doing something about it and half of us are more in the gray land so far. In terms of the strategic integration, the strategy development, the strategic decision, strategic integration, our dilemmas are around, are we now becoming more compliance-driven than strategy-driven? It's unfortunately quite easy to actually stack yourself up in the corner of reporting right now because it's quite demanding and it's hard for many boards to get back into the strategy. The other area is around the systematic integration of sustainability into business. Also to balance the immediate operational decisions that keeps coming up with the long-term sustainability goals. Many companies have been struggling around finance and have taken long decisions. Well, can you change out your fleet of cars right now, even if it's the right thing to do? So that's kind of the dilemmas that we're struggling with. We're also struggling a bit with our changing role in being involved in strategy development. And then on the comprehensive management of the integration, we have a bit of a dilemma. And finally, to establish effective resource and collaboration in this area within our companies and with our ecosystem. So now you have a bit of a flavor of where we are on our dilemmas. We have a lot of things to think through. And the good thing about thinking about these dilemmas is that they are a good palette for you to think through, which are the ones hindering us in our pursuit. So it's with great joy that I introduce my research colleague, Henrik Forzelius, who is an experienced entrepreneur and executive director from before, and has done a second shift here in his career, and is now also working on his PhD. So warm welcome, Henrik.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, I like to start. We're going to talk about materiality and strategic risk, and to put that into context, I like to start with an illustration of the tipping point of disruptions. If you can see the picture, where you have uncertainty and a timeline, and in the beginning, when there is some kind of technical innovation or something else, there's usually a very high degree of uncertainty. And as time goes by, so this innovation or disruption is maturing, the uncertainty is reducing. So we can go for the next slide. What happens is that the more mature something comes, it becomes also a higher risk of not doing anything. The trouble with this is that when you have uncertainty, usually it's a good way to actually respond by waiting and be agile and follow up. However, when it comes to something that comes with a speed, when it's risky, then it's important to actually be proactive. What is going on right now is that we have sort of a mixture between those. We have a lot of uncertainty and it's coming with high speed. That means that you have to do both. You have to start to find your tipping point, which is the next slide. That means that in beforehand, you have some to navigate, to understand where are you on the maturity level and how will these disruptions affect you. So you have to start working proactively with speed. And that means making decisions without having all the facts. And then you have to innovate your way forward. And that's sort of the perspective I want you to have when we talk about materiality, which is on the next slide, please. So if we look at materiality and strategic risk, I would like to introduce this concept with how the board work has changed. First of all, we have the uncertainty, which increases the importance of scenarios, because today it's not only a risk of not being able to carry through your strategy. The risk is that you have the wrong strategy for the future. So the way you do scenario work has also changed, not to see where our strategy is going, but to see what strategy do we need to have. So it also has to be a relevant frequency for your business to follow up and see, is my strategy relevant at all? And the second thing is the strategic external input and workshops for board only. And the reason for this is that when the world is changing very fast, you need to make sure that you're not biased from the organization and their competence, their view. So you as a board need to independently get your own idea of where our market is going and how your company need to maneuver, so you can have fruitful discussions with the management. So that's also something new, that you cannot only be supervising what's going on, you have to have your own strategic life in the board as well. And the third point is then to include strategy in innovation in your risk assessments. So it cannot only be a question of risks on the current business, but also the risk in having the right strategy or not. Please, next picture. So then we come to the principle number 5, which is strategic integration. And to work in beforehand and proactively as a board will also then change very many ways that the board has been working before. The first point is actually to have a strategy first perspective on the board meetings. We have seen that reports and the follow-up, the usual follow-up, all this is sent in beforehand and discussed in the end of the meeting. The beginning of meeting is usually focused on strategy discussions. And also when you are trying out a new strategy, you will find out challenges, which we call strategic bottlenecks. So you have focus on that already on the strategic meetings in the board. This also requires, look at the second point, is that board members need to be engaged in the organization and actually see what's going on. And this has been a no-no before, especially in Sweden, where you have a separated board from the management. But to be able actually to have fruitful discussions, you need to know what's going on, both from your external input, but also internal input. So therefore, individually have to engage, and the board and the management need to work together as a strategic management. And to actually be able to carry through a strategy under uncertainty, you have to take it in small steps and learnings. So that means you have to put in place strategic initiatives where you do trials, pilots, experimentation, and where failures are part of actually forming your strategy. This also calls for another way of financial planning. So you have to have budgets for uncertainty, where you try out things. To do budgeting is a little bit too static. So instead you have to have reserves for your different investments. So that's some of the inputs that we've seen from our research on how boards are involved for long-time value creation.
Thank you so much, Henrik. And we should have said that we had a lot of very interesting interviews with very nice sharings. And I particularly find this thing around strategy bottlenecks really interesting, and how you can jump towards a new way of looking at things. Thank you so much, Henrik. Now, we are delighted to have Professor Stanislav Shekshnia with us. He is a professor at INSEAD in the Entrepreneurship and Family Enterprise. He's also the co-director of Leading from the Chair and for Advanced Board Development Programs. He's also the academic director of the Scandinavian Executive Institute, a senior partner at WH Advisor and chair and head of international companies, and a famous author of a lot of books. Warm welcome, Stanislav. I'll do it like this, and you can share from your machine.
Thank you, Liselotte. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. I have a few slides to share, so let me put them on the screen. What I wanted to do this morning is to talk about the role of the chair in what Henrik mentioned earlier, what we call the gradual disruption, and I think I will use sustainability as an illustration for that. But This thing can apply, I think, to any kind of gradual disruption. If we think about AI, it will be very similar. And I think I have 5 things that I would like to mention this morning. We learned from this research that for most boards, gradual disruption is more challenging than one-time disruption. No matter how unpleasant it may be, but boards seems to be able to deal with one-shot disruption or explosive disruptions quite comfortably. However, when it comes to gradual disruptions, boards are less comfortable in adjusting to that, which seems to be paradox, right? Because you have all the time in the world, you're not in a rush, you're not under pressure, and yet it's more difficult. It's more difficult to adjust. And of course, that's partially human nature, right? When we don't have the sense of urgency, why change? It's much more difficult to unlearn old habits when you're not under pressure. But whether we like it or not, we need to change, and the chairs are the force for change at the board level. Again, this is paradoxical, because if we think about chairs and we think about traditional change management instruments, the chairs don't really have them. They cannot change their teams. They cannot change incentives for people with whom they work. They can hardly have an impact on the routines of the board. So it looks like the chairs do not have that much instruments for fostering transformation at the board level. And yet, if we look at what chairs do, there are some very important things that they can do to change how the boards operates. And I wanted to talk about those things. The first one actually is it's the chair himself or herself. It all starts with the mindset. It all starts with the approach the chairs take to the issue. And here we talk about sustainable value creation. Here we talk about sustainability. I've put on the slides 4 different statements. They're all quotes from the chairs that I spoke to during my research interviews, and it shows somewhat different attitudes of chairs towards the sustainability. And from this attitude, the attitude of the board starts, and the way the board handles the sustainability starts. If you are in the position of the first chair, these days we have to sacrifice shareholder value for sustainability. You have one type of attitude. Sustainability, it's the burden. It's something that we have to deal with because we're forced to. If you are on the 4th statement, as a board leader, I'm working with the board, shareholders, and management to reconcile profitability and sustainability to ensure the longevity of the business. That's a very different proposition. It doesn't sound that much different, but the first one, as I said, it's a more of a dealing with the burden approach, while the 4th one, it's the positive approach. It's about framing sustainability as something which is useful for the organization for which we work as a board. And that's the type of attitude that allows boards to be productive. So the first thing, very important, is how do chairs take the issue of sustainability? And I think I would like to finish this small piece with this quote, because I think it illustrates how the boards could approach sustainability in a productive way. Sustainability is not about making money and donating some of them to charity. It's about how you make your money. It needs to be an integrated part of strategy to make money in sustainable way. You don't separate sustainability from your business. They go hand in hand, and this approach allows the boards to deal with sustainability in a productive manner. The second thing that the chair has a strong impact on, and that also has a strong impact on how effective the board and the company at the end is in working with sustainability, it's the board purpose. I believe that effective boards have a very clear purpose. They understand why they work, why they get together as a group of people. And the chair is someone who makes sure that the board understands why they are together. The board has a clear purpose or a clear mission. And as the situation changes and sustainability becomes such an important subject, effective chairs organize this debate. They ask their board members, look, excuse me, we have the sustainability movement that has an impact on our lives and has an impact on our business. Should we, as a board, embrace it as a part of what we do? Should it become part of our purpose and our mission? And I've given here some examples on how boards have adopted their missions to reflect the sustainability. Our purpose is to serve the company to ensure its sustainability. So sustainability has been articulated as an element of the board's purpose. Our purpose is to ensure the business creates superior value in sustainable manner for the years to come. So if you have sustainability as a part of your board purpose, then the third thing happens, and that is the agenda. As I said, chair doesn't have that many instruments and tools, but very powerful instrument and a tool the chair controls is the board agenda. What the board talks about, what the board discusses, what the board decides upon. So for sustainability, chairs make sure that it's a standing item on the agenda. We talk about sustainability in a sustainable manner. We talk about this at every board meeting or every second board meeting, depending on your situation. But it's always there. It will not go away. It also the angle from which we discuss other important subject at the board. We always put on sustainability lens if we want to embrace sustainability. If sustainability is part of your agenda, then it's part of your strategy. And if it's part of your strategy, then it has to be translated into the metrics, and then you have to select the reporting format. An effective chair doesn't do it. Chairs do not make choices, but they make sure that the board does it. The board discusses the sustainability. The board integrates sustainability into the strategy. The board selects the metrics for sustainability, and the board selects the reporting format. The fourth thing that is very important, it's the capabilities. In order to deal with sustainability or in order to deal with AI, we need to have capabilities. We need to understand what it is, and we need to understand how to work with this one. Earlier, I said that the chair does not control the board composition. The chair cannot fire people, right? Or the chair cannot bring new board members single-handed. However, chair has some influence on the board composition. Chair works with shareholders and with nomination committees on the on the composition, and an effective chair makes sure that sustainability is one of the elements of the collective board expertise. The chair can organize ad hoc or a permanent board committee, which focuses on sustainability. Chairs bring external help. They bring experts into the boardroom who do not have the voice, but who voice in terms of voting and making decisions, but have the voice in terms of experts. And chairs organize education for the board members. As a matter of fact, it's becoming a very important element of chairs' work to help boards and individual directors to upgrade their skills, and that's virtually becomes a permanent work. I remember when I became independent director first time in my life, which was about 20 years ago. The assumption was that I know pretty much everything that I need to know for the next 5 or 7 years that I will be on that board. Of course, life has changed. Now you don't know even what you will need to know in five years, and chair as a board leader has to make sure that the directors learn, and they learn sustainability in this case. One funny example, I'm on the board of one company, and about 2 years ago, it's a real estate development company. About 2 years ago, we wanted the CEO proposed a sustainability roadmap to the board. It was quite a detailed document, and we had a board meeting, and we started to talk about this. And at some point, collectively, we realized that we simply don't have enough expertise even to be able to discuss the roadmap that the CEO and management have proposed. So instead of approving the roadmap, we approved board development program for the next 6 months for us to get up to speed on the sustainability issues. And I think that most boards need to do some kind of education in this area. Another thing that effective chairs do, they make sure that the board engages the CEO on the sustainability matter. And the most important thing, I think, to do is to make sure that it becomes part of the frame that boards create for executives in terms of goals, in terms of authority, and in terms of values. And of course, sustainability becomes a very important dimension on which boards evaluate their CEOs, their performance, and their capabilities. I'm not a big fan of financial incentives overall. I don't think they are important for motivation of CEO and senior management. However, having said that, I believe that existing incentives should reflect sustainability and sustainable value creation, because we need to put our money where our mouth is, and very often it's not the case. You know, we talk about sustainability, but we pay our CEOs on depending on the stock price of the company. So that should not be the case. And the last thing on this one is that I think effective chairs, they use CEOs as another learning instrument for the board. They are not afraid of CEOs who know more on sustainable value creation than the board. They actually welcome the CEOs to the boardroom, and they use them as an instrument to educate the board. And the last point, but probably not least, is about chairs and shareholders. Effective chairs engage shareholders in discussing the matter of sustainable value creation. They make sure that owners think about this. They make sure that owners have enough knowledge to deal with this issue. And they also ask owners to think about the mission of the company in the time of sustainability. Should the mission reflect the new realities in which we live? Should there be something about sustainability? And of course, a very important role of the chair is to bring the shareholders' voice to the boardroom, to make sure that the board knows what shareholders think about sustainability, what their expectations are. So in a nutshell, that's what I wanted to share with you. The role of the chair is very important in all gradual disruptions, and when it comes down to sustainable value creation, it could hardly be overestimated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stanislav. Very interesting. And I think for some of us who have worked a long time on boards, we really feel what you're saying. Two things that I pick out from this. One is that the chair is so instrumental. But the other thing that I think that we maybe haven't made all of our chairs enough insightful on, as you point out, that is that they actually have a responsibility to help out and arrange for the correct education. And I think that is something that we probably will have to see more and more of, not just that we are educating ourselves, but right now it's a very individual responsibility, and that it also moves into the chair role much more. Thank you so much, Stanislav. Now we are glad to have Anne Årneby joining us and share her perspective. And Anne is a professional board director. She works at Fabege, which is also a real estate company, Svenska Spel, one of the state-owned gaming companies, A Society, and Stiftelsen Tumba Bruk. And she has been a CEO in a couple of companies and a CMO, and she is a really insightful person that knows how hard it is to make a change on boards when you come in, especially new, but also how important it is that you actually put forward your voice to that. So warm welcome, Anne.
Thank you so much. I think we should move into just talking a little bit about the perspectives of what I see in the boards where I work. So with this, I started off with this lovely picture from a helicopter. This is not so politically correct any longer when we talk about sustainability, but it's an old picture and I think we can enjoy it. So moving into the next slide, please. PwC sends out this global CEO survey every year, and in the mid of January this year, the report was presented. And I wanted you to just see the figure that 45% of the CEOs believe that their company will not be viable in 10 years if it stays on its current path. And this figure has gone up, obviously. And the interesting thing is here that, of course, this is about the long-term viability, as you can see in the text below. And of course, this means that we have a shared challenge, both the management and the board of directors, to see how should we then make sure that we actually drive the change going forward. And in the next slide, I just wanted you to see how sustainability is presented in completely two different ways. And this is from the boards where I am working. And I also know that for you who takes this education together with Liselotte and Fernanda, you talk about the double mindset, but it's actually presented from two different auditors that I have in the boards where I work. And the one to the left, quite obvious, the growth opportunity of the century. So sustainability is presented in a way where you see that you could create value. Are you ready for the ESG change? And it's a report talking about these opportunities. And to the right, I know it's Swedish text, and I'm not really showing this in order to make you read all of it. But the interesting part is another auditor from another company presents the same topic only from a reporting perspective and only to be compliant. And this is, of course, interesting because most of the companies that I work with, they have started to do this materiality assessment and the double materiality assessment. And of course, just like you heard Professor Stanislav talking about the chair's importance, I think also the auditor puts a mindset into the board, how you should deal with this new sustainability topic coming in. So please bear that in mind, that even if your auditors are focusing on maybe the right side figure here on reporting, it is also a growth opportunity, and vice versa, I would say. So the next slide. I think it's very important, and this is how I try also to contribute in the board work in order to make sure that we actually talk about the same things and discuss the same things. That is, what does the value chain look like in the company? And most companies have not really thought about how to present or in this way visualize the value chain, then it's much easier to discuss if you have and share the same image of where you are today and what you could change in the long term in order to create value. And of course, the board's vision needs to be taking into account here, what kind of strategic development do we need to do? Do we have the proper offerings and are we taking them to the market in the right way? Do we have the competitive edge that is needed for future long-term sustainable growth? And what are the opportunities and risks? And I find this way of working, trying to visualize the value chain very, very interesting, because this is usually done in a workshop. And I have initiated this in 2 boards, which have meant that we have been able to move forward much quicker than before. Because usually you try to explain these things, maybe when it comes to figures, or just in words, or in bullet points, but it's much, much clearer to make sure that you try to draw it. And of course, if you want to have it much better presented, then you can bring in an illustrator afterwards, because I'm not an art director or an artist, but I think you can see this also in some annual reports now, because it's quite interesting to see if you visualize it and then you can show the metrics down below. And of course, then you need to make sure that you look into the value chain to see the triggers and the pain points, and also discuss the risk appetite that you have in the company and what you really need to report. Because of course, some of the bigger companies are reporting for the first time, more or less this spring. I think we saw some kind of questions coming up here. Should I take them or?
Yes, I was thinking exactly as you wish, Anne. It was
do it very quickly, because
Okay.
otherwise we get out of time.
so it was
Okay.
mainly Cecilia that was
Yeah.
asking if you add perspectives, for example, Porter's 5 forces.
I've not used Porter's 5 forces, but definitely, you know, if you have more perspectives when it comes to models and stuff like that, that is interesting. I'm trying to be super condensed here in this presentation, just to make sure what I'm trying to do. And the major point I'm trying to make here is actually the visualization of the value chain.
Super.
Okay, moving forward. Dilemmas question mark, because I think again here, I think we just heard from Stanislav the knowledge gap between the executive management and the board, and especially on the topic sustainability. I have to add that I think I can sense it quite a lot when it comes to digitalization as well, and how to treat data. And if you don't have that in place, AI is more or less out of the question. So I think the major thing is how to develop the ways of working between executive management and the board. And I'm super happy to see the research that has been presented here today, because that is also something to use when you present ideas to the chair, because I am not chair within these boards that I'm working in right now. Might be later on, but not the upcoming years. And I think being able to impact and come with ideas is always good to rely on research. So these are my 2 takes for trying to move things forward. And this was I think this was the last slide.
Thank you so much, Anne, and also very interesting. And I think the other point that you really push here is you're talking about making it visual. For me, it also means actually putting something in place so that we can get in the same frames.
Yes.
I think when you have so short time, it's really about actually knowing that you're talking about the same things.
Yes.
So
and it has really helped, I have to say.
Yeah.
So and very fast, because the part where we actually can agree upon what is the common image that we share of the current state, then of course it's much easier to start to discuss should we then move forward?
Right.
And
And I
then you
also
get
think-
into the strategy
Yeah.
integration that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I also think it's very important because some boards or some companies are stuck in, oh, we don't have that much. So it becomes a question about what should we ask our employees to not take a car to work. But in fact, if they are at that stage, most all of them actually have something prior to their value chain. And that is very good to visualize in that way that you did. So thank you so much for that. Now I'm launching a little poll for you, and that is for you to vote on which of these challenges do you think is most prohibiting for your boards. So mark the ones that has the biggest challenge, that the board is not trained, that you have no joint defining and assessment or integration of the materiality, that you're not integrating it in, that you are more compliance than strategy focus, or the balance of the operational decision with the long term. So we're waiting for many of you to answer that question. And we are getting closer and closer. It's a good spread, I can tell you that. But it does highlight where we have the bigger challenges. So I will end the poll very shortly. If you haven't voted, please do so. So I'll end the poll and I'll share the results. And I think I'll start to ask Stanislav, what do you think of these results?
Well, I'm very glad that my team won, because I also voted number one. But yes, but I think it is expected. I think it is the very important issue, the knowledge, because, you know, when you think about this, that the directors mostly had their formal education 30, maybe 40 years ago, and at that time was not much about sustainability. So it is a real issue. And I think the second real issue is more compliance than strategy driven focus, is partially consequence of the first one. We do it because we're forced to do it, rather because we understand how to do it and we know what it is. So all about education.
Thank you so much. And it highlights, and we're so grateful that many of you are taking this education. So we will now look at what we're going to do in our breakout rooms. So we ask you to just consider a fictive company so that you have a bit of the same mindset. So this just happened to be a tech company you can look at. Agree a chair and a vice chair to lead the discussion, and you can pick either of the dilemmas we've shown, but to pick the education or pick the compliance versus strategy integration would be our recommendation. So we will move you into breakout rooms, and you will have about 15 minutes to discuss it. Do we have any quick questions before we do that? We will move you automatically back as well. Thank you so much for engaging in this. I just thought we would maybe get a highlight from one of the rooms. And for all of the rooms, if you can just put in the chat your findings. But if I pick on room 1 with Catherine Håpin, Johanna Fagrell, Kia Aimelius, Magnus Forsbrand, and Stanislav. What did you?
Okay, yes, so we had a very good discussion, and what we identified was a big gap in the education, the people who provide the education, that Stanislav pointed out that it tends to be very technical and therefore it doesn't resonate with your average board member. And whilst it is good, the starting point tends to be the auditors. They come in, they make a presentation, but it tends to be compliance focused, and it doesn't ignite the conversation that you need to have within your board, between your board members. Whereas in a peer exchange like this, or like courses they run in INSEAD or other institutions, you have a forum where people exchange practices, exchange challenges, and they can, you take it out of your everyday, and then you find a commonality. And we also really liked Anne's value chain as a starting point, getting everyone to at least agree where we are, what it is we need to do. And also mentioned it would be good if the board had some basic tools or methods, just so that we can start the conversation. We all know that we don't, it's a moving target. We don't know enough, but that doesn't mean you can't, you still have to act, and then you can change course. So keep it on the agenda, and yeah, so that was our conclusion.
Thank you so much. And if I can ask the other rooms, maybe I'll pick on one more. Irvin, Mary, Oksana, Susanne, Henrik. Do you have a point of view from your discussion?
So, Oksana, do you want to do this?
Well, actually, you as the chairman, I can do it. No problem, but well.
Hey, I'll do that then. I thought we agreed to do it this way anyway. So what we did is we decided we were the board of a vegan protein manufacturer that produces protein out of soy and chickpeas. And we have in the past been very profit driven, and hence we've been promoting the use of a lot of land and pesticides and chemicals. And now suddenly we are under pressure by our financial investors to become more sustainable. And so we had a crisis session so that we could see what would be the way forward. And the first thing that we noticed is that we are absolutely not qualified to have a good discussion around sustainability, because that was not in our focus in the past. So we decided that we will get ourselves up to speed. We also decided that we needed to bring in experts to help us in this process. We also came to the conclusion that it is not just possible to change the entire direction of a big boat without looking deeply into the purpose of the venture. Hence, the next board meeting will be around the purpose and the values of the business. And hopefully arising from there, we will have enough shareholders, but also stakeholders. We have, and I think you probably lost me for a sec, or?
Yeah, but it's okay.
Okay, so anyway, so that's that. We also thought that, of course, protein can be, produced out of other materials. So we want to also look at innovation. And I don't know, team, if I forgot anything there, but I think that was more or less the gist.
Thank you so much. I love that you actually played it, because it makes a difference, and you think differently when you have to put yourself into a situation and not just talk about the situation. So thank you so much for sharing that. And also that you kind of through the crisis had to go back up on the purpose, which I think is actually a very common route to get to that. I'd like to get our panel back in focus, and I'm going to ask them a couple of questions. So of course I need to start with how do we, do you believe that we have the appropriate attention on our boards? And what do you think that we can do to achieve the appropriate attention if we start in that angle? Do you want to start, Anna?
I think looking at the research that has been presented, I think that we actually have a moving target right now. So I wouldn't say that we have the right attention, but I think more and more companies and boards seem to be moving in the right direction, which I think is really great to see. And I think also doing this kind of research and also having the possibility to discuss, reflect, and understand that this is difficult and we are going through times of change makes it easier, actually, than if you are just trying to do things in one specific board. So open up, be more transparent, reach out. I think that is really what at least I'm trying to contribute with. So you start to understand that you're not alone.
Yeah. Let's go directly to the most important influencer in the boardroom, the chair, Stanislav. What do you hear? You're training, what, 200-300 chairs a year? What do you hear?
Not that many. What do I hear? That I hear that people are concerned. I hear that people spend time on that. But I also hear that people do not feel they are well equipped to deal with this. So that's why I think the education is really serious issue. We kind of we up to now we failed to combine the good education with appropriate knowledge. I think people who have the knowledge, they don't know how to pass this knowledge, and people who know how to pass the knowledge, they don't have the knowledge itself. So we somehow we need to combine these two things. That I think that's the major challenge. But I think the important approach is, rather than waiting until the moment we have this knowledge, we have learned, we need to move forward, and that's also how you develop knowledge, by doing things.
That's very insightful. Henrik, you have interviewed at least 30 people, chairs in a mix of NEDs. What did you pick up in terms of, do we actually have the appropriate attention on this?
I think it's a huge difference between the boards, and of course the chairman and the committees, election committees are very important in this. I think what we learned from some of the interviews is that there's a shift of who is sitting on the board. It used to be depending on what you've done is why you're on a board. Now the question is what you're gonna do. That's a huge difference. For example, if you have the mining industry, AI is maybe the absolute most important knowledge at the moment, and not actually how to run a mine. So there's a huge shift of what you're actually going to need in the future, and make sure that you have that on the board.
And I think the complementary to this, and also I've been sitting on boards for 10 years and chairing boards, I think the approach from boards and chairs on education, that it becomes this 1 hour presentation from a specialist in the company, and kind of go, that was interesting, but I'm not sure I know so much more about the topic. How can we overcome that? What do you think? Do we need to, what do we need to do? If I'm on a board, how can I get my chair to understand that this is a bigger thing and that we actually need some education? And in this case now coming, sustainability, AI, cybersecurity, there's actually quite a lot of topics that we have to handle. What do you think? Anne, what would you like to see?
I think, again, that what you're saying, not just bringing in someone who will, present something for an hour or 30 minutes or whatever, more moving into action-based learning. And of course, then again, a lot of people actually get scared but because it's about prestige also. So you need to create an environment where you actually feel the psychological safety within the boardroom, and also try to make it fun, playful to a certain extent. What I've been doing, since I'm not the chair, I have been approaching the chair and having separate conversations, not bringing it up in the boardroom specifically, but and coming up with ideas, which has been quite good, I think. Not everything is done, of course, but then on the other hand, the perspectives, because then the chair presents a few of the ideas to the rest of the board, and that has really helped.
Right. And I think just the process that you went through is really interesting. You did not bring it up in the boardroom. You took the chair aside so the chair could introduce the areas. I think that is also very interesting. That probably maybe we need to reflect on how we can make more of that happening. So now we have this thing that is also driven a bit about the regulation, that we're looking at these sustainability topics in quite a separate fashion from all of the rest of our risk. And we actually have a bit hard time to get it back into the overall risk and opportunity assessment. What did you hear on that topic, Henrik, in our research?
Sorry, I lost you for.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My connection.
So the question is, what did you hear about actually merging these separate topics back into the bigger risk analysis? So having done even maybe a workshop on sustainability, but it doesn't really become integrated back into the risk. What did you hear around that?
I think also it's a question of attitude, to have a culture of actually working proactively with the future way, but also to make the risk to become opportunities. We had good examples of actually, if you change it the other way, a lot of boards have easier to actually address it. So this is a risk, but what could we do? How can we earn money on it? And that becomes more natural.
And I think that's a great suggestion, to actually find a way to even get it on the table. What's the opportunities we should look at? And Stanislav, when you discuss with both in the research and also with your chair groups, how do you discuss around the strategy and the involvement in strategy, and what is going on there? Your strategy development,
I'll answer this question, but I just want to say one thing on the question that you asked, Anne, about how to make it sort of more relevant. I think one of the things that we could do, and we should probably do, is to apply the same logic that we apply to board materials in effective boards. Board owns the materials, the chair owns the material, right? If management prepares materials for us, we tell management how we want my board book. I don't want management to decide on what to put into my board book. I want myself to decide. And I think the same is true about sustainability. If we should tell experts what we want from them. We should take the ownership from them, because right now we're afraid, so we give the whole thing to the consultant or to internal specialist, and then we don't get what we need. So we have to be proactive in defining what we want, asking the questions that we want to address. So that's one point. In terms of strategy, I think there's no universal answer to this one, because the different boards. You have company where management is very mature, and the board is there more kind of to listen to the strategy and to be, to make sure that strategy is sound and understood by the board. And you have organizations where management is not that mature, not that strong, and you need to have a high level of board's involvement into the strategy process. What I think works everywhere is what I've said earlier, is that sustainability is another lens that you apply to whatever you discuss, right? When you talk about strategy, you also apply the sustainability lens.
I think that's very true, and I think you're probably back to the engagement area. Can you just finally make some comment on how do you see now that AI is impacting board work and should be taken into account?
I think in two ways. One is an instrument that helps individual directors to operate. It's I was listening to I listened to Nadella recently, and he is promoting this idea of co-pilot. So you have a co-pilot in being a board member, and each of us should use it more often and more frequently. I do use it. I find it to be a great help, even for formulating framing discussion questions for board meeting. I asked AI what should be the question, and sometimes it's very good suggestions. So I think that's the one. And the second one, again, I think we all need to learn more about AI as a business enabler, as the company enabler. And in our discussions, strategic discussions, we should think, okay, where's the place for AI in this one?
Very good, thank you. And Henrik, what do you see?
Yeah, I think first of all, I've seen examples from our interviews that where the biggest cost is IT in a company, and they have to revise the whole IT strategy because suddenly you don't need to develop a certain program. You could just put the data in an AI application, and you get answers back. So it will affect the whole way how you see IT within a company. But then on a board level, I agree with Stanislav that you can actually have it as a sort of a coach where you can ask a question and get a lot of good input on strategy topics and stuff. That, of course, I mean, you cannot rely on it, but you can get a lot of ideas from it.
And Anne, do you have any practical ways that you've been trying to look at and steer it in your companies?
Yes, and I think I agree with Stanislav that should try and use it for different purposes. But one thing is for sure, that we really need to work on how to ask questions.
Yeah.
Since AI is actually responding on how we present our questions, and that is something that we need to work on. And also train ourselves. So prompting is something that we are not super skilled at and could probably develop. So that is what we've been training and trying to do. Also try to do it a little bit in a playful way to see what happens if you actually formulate questions better or worse, because you actually get quite different answers. And that is very helpful.
Thank you so much. And for the ones who take the program right now, I don't know if you noticed, but we have actually introduced a board simulation exercise where you actually will do your simulation in AI. So I think that is a really interesting way of being able to experiment and also train yourself. So go check that out. I think that our time is really running out. I'm so grateful, and I will leave it over to Fernanda to do the thanking and the next.
Thank you so much. Absolutely super interesting panel. So thank you so much to our presenters, and thank you to all the audience and the really good discussions in the breakout rooms. And thank you for sharing the insights in the chat. To wrap up, I just wanted to give you also just some pointers over what's happening now in the near future. We talked quite a lot today about the role of the chair, the importance of the chair, and we will have now on March 26 an event specifically related to chairs fostering psychological safety. So please sign up for that. Before that, we have starting the registration deadline until the 1st of March, I believe, starting our responsible AI program. So really looking forward for that. It's based on a research project that we've conducted, and we have published a book around it and being updated with the new relevant contents related to Gen AI, of course. So the first event from that program, Board's Oversight of Responsible AI for Value Creation, the first event is taking place on the 5th of March. We're very happy to have Mats Agervi, the CEO of Combient, also Aned attending, and also Bente, that couldn't be here today. So that would be a very nice way for you to catch up with her. Also part of this program, Board's Oversight of Sustainability for Value Creation, is on the 16th of February. We have the third webinar related to incentivization, reporting, disclosure, and the stakeholder exchange. So please sign up for all these events. Please sign up for the program, Board's Oversight of Responsible AI. Share it in your networks. If you have anyone that you think could be interested, please, make sure that we can make this a really nice community for everyone. Thank you so much. I'm feeling great.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Wish
Bye-bye.
you all a great day.